Chapter 3. Ronald Bennett and I were placed in separate cells, unable to see each other, but I could faintly hear Ronald Bennett's screams. I knew all too well that this was a game, and everyone was just a lifeless NPC, but Ronald Bennett's screams were too real. The eerie and oppressive atmosphere made it hard to breathe. Tap, tap, Beckett Sterling walked in, dressed in a black brocade uniform with gold thread and polished boots. The moment his gaze met mine, a flicker of surprise crossed his smiling eyes. He crouched outside the cell and asked, seemingly sincere, "Miss Silas, what are you doing in prison?" If I were still an outsider to this game, I might have actually been fooled by his superb acting. "Miss Silas, why are you looking at me like that?" Beckett Sterling's smile remained, but a dark undercurrent churned deep within his eyes. He looked at me for a moment, then reached his fair hand through the cell bars, trying to smooth the furrow in my brow. I sidestepped to avoid it. His hand remained suspended in the air, as if he hadn't expected me to dodge. Beckett Sterling paused before withdrawing his hand and reverting to the pitiful demeanor of his servant days. "Miss Silas, is there some misunderstanding between us?" He spoke softly. When I didn't answer, he chuckled after a moment, then looked up at me with resentment in his eyes. "What's wrong with you these past 2 days? When I was a servant, you treated me so well. But now that I've finally climbed to the position of bureau head, why are you so cold to me?" Beckett Sterling's lips were still slightly upturned, but there was no smile in his eyes. He suddenly reached out, pulled me close to the bars, and whispered in my ear, his voice as sticky as a venomous snake, "Miss Silas, I advise you to go back to the way you were if you're going to pretend." I was about to push him away when it suddenly occurred to me that completing the main quest was my only way back. With Beckett Sterling as the bureau head, he would certainly have a way to exonerate Ronald Bennett. Or perhaps the Ronald Bennett case was Beckett Sterling's way of exploiting my weakness. In any case, I could not afford to fall out with Beckett Sterling now. I was released from the cell. "Beckett," I said softly, timidly taking his hand. He looked at me thoughtfully for a long while before raising an eyebrow and asking, "Is Miss Silas afraid?" "Don't worry, Miss Silas. They wouldn't dare lay a hand on you." "My father is innocent. Will you help me, Beckett?" I asked ingratiatingly. "As long as Miss Silas behaves, I will naturally help." Beckett Sterling lowered his eyes, frowned slightly, then took out a white handkerchief to wipe the dust from my hands. Just when I thought Beckett Sterling was going to release me from prison, his tone changed subtly, and he withdrew his hand. "But now is not the time to let you go, Miss Silas." "Miss Silas no longer wants to be my pet? No matter. I will shatter that pride of yours, inch by inch." "Miss Silas, your alliance is no longer the House of Bennett, but me, Beckett Sterling. It can only be me. As long as Miss Silas can return to being the Miss Silas of before, I can also return to being the humble Beckett of before." Beckett Sterling stood up, looking down at me with an inscrutable expression.